And I'm Emma Shea Perfecto. I'm the Director of Homeownership, and we have some key staff here. We have our Deputy Director for the agency, Caleb Yat, as well as Kim Freeman, who's our Assistant Director of Homeownership Programs, and Scott Shaw. I'm trying to be able to see something, and okay, sorry, I've got a lot of things going on my screen. So we've been working very hard in this past year to get this program up and running, and are excited to present details about flex lending and answer your questions today. We'll have a Q&A at the end, as well as our chat box going. Just a reminder again that today's presentation is being recorded and will be posted to our website afterwards. So for our agenda and objectives today, during today's session, we will set the context by sharing about the overall role of the HFAs and the prevalence of TBA programs across the nation. We will be talking about our program design and development process. We're going to share more details on the characteristics of our mortgage and DPA products and our estimated timeline as well. I know we've gotten a lot of questions about that. And like I said before, we're going to have time at the end for our Q&A, so that if you have any questions, you can get those out there. But feel free to put comments, your questions in the comment section. We'll be also capturing those. We have a team watching those and making sure that they're all captured, and we can either answer them today or get back to you. And really our goal today is that you walk away with a clear picture of what flex lending is and how it fits in with our larger landscape of tools and the things that are available for people to achieve homeownership. So without further delay, I'm going to pass this on to Caleb Yat, our Deputy Director, to do some context setting for you all and to talk about flex. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Emma Shea. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caleb Yat. As Emma Shea said, I use he, his pronouns. And I will be relatively quick before I hand it over to some of the content experts to get into flex lending more specifically. But I wanted to just share a little bit of context about the role of an HFA, Housing Finance Agency, how OHCS as Oregon's Housing Finance Agency aligns with that role, and then how flex lending is really critical in helping us to align with that role. So first about HFA's Housing Finance Agency. Like I said, OHC, our organization, is Oregon's Housing Finance Agency. This is a role we mention, but we don't really often talk about. At the center of HFA's identity is embracing the role of setting policy and providing ongoing funding. And that's the piece that I really kind of want to stress here. Ongoing funding in good economic climates and in bad economic climates to help meet the affordable housing needs of our residents. And the cornerstone of HFA's business are key federally authorized programs, specifically housing bonds and related lending products, and housing tax credits. Both of these are self-sustaining programs that are not reliant on ongoing state appropriation. And that's what's so exciting about flex lending and what you'll hear us talk about today. It's establishing a new lending platform that will ultimately provide ongoing self-sustaining lending products for homeownership that aren't reliant on that ongoing state appropriations to provide down payment assistance and to help continue to offer homeownership lending products. We see this as a really critical part of our role to provide these homeownership lending tools, again, specifically down payment assistance, in a way that doesn't rely on those ongoing state appropriations of funding. And think this is something we need to wholeheartedly embrace. So that's a little bit about HFAs, how OHCS fits that. OHCS is a little bit different. Many other HFAs across the country are independent of the executive branch of state government, meaning, among other things, there's less regulations, less regulatory oversight. However, OHCS is part of the executive branch of state government. Also, many HFAs receive little to no state funding, meaning they're entirely focused on developing self-sustaining programs. And in juxtaposition to that, OHCS administers substantial amounts of both state and federal appropriations, which is ultimately a good thing. And this all means that we have to, one, work closely with other branches of state government to launch programs like this, such as Department of Justice, such as Oregon State Treasury. And it also means that we have to balance policy objectives associated with state funding appropriations and also lean into the self-sustaining programs like this, the program Flex Lending. So finally, just a little bit more context about Flex Lending, and you can see some of this on the PowerPoint slide here. Of HFAs, 45 state HFAs offer to be announced TBA, in our case, we're calling it Flex Lending, mortgage lending programs to expand access to programs. These programs operate generally on lean budgets based on the revenue they make from the products of the mortgage lending itself. So Oregon is one of only a handful of HFAs that hasn't launched a TBA program, including Montana, Alaska, Wyoming, and Connecticut. And so, like I said, TBA or Flex Lending is what we're calling it, is really an untapped tool to foster homeownership in Oregon. And again, not to be a broken record, but will eventually be a way that provides that ongoing sustainable down payment assistance without the need for recurring general fund appropriations. So I just wanted to share that a little bit of context, both about what the role of an HFA is and how we play into that and how we see this playing into that role and playing into what we as OHCS are striving to achieve. And now I'll hand it over to the program team to dive in a little deeper.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kim Freeman, the Assistant Director to Homeownership Programs. So I have the next couple of slides to share some information. The first one really talks about the Oregon's housing market. For most of our partners on the call today and the lenders that have joined us, this isn't anything that's surprisingly or shocking, right? Oregon home prices are continuing to rise, which has impacted a segment of our potential homeownership market who are unable to access homes due to the rising cost of homes and the increasing in interest rates. You know, some days we have a little bit of a lower rate, some days we have a higher rate. So you guys are experiencing this on a daily basis. We know that down payment assistance is the top barrier to homeownership. Also know that Oregonians of color are vastly underrepresented as homeowners and face additional barriers to homeownership as well. We also know there's a need for safe, affordable mortgage products for those who wouldn't typically qualify. And again, one of the reasons that we're looking at our Flex Lending program, which you'll hear more about shortly. Next slide, please. And for those of you that are really familiar with our current mortgage product, which is our Oregon Bond Residential Loan Program, or the acronym that's up there. So I'm not even going to try to tell you what that acronym is, but it is just all the letters of the Oregon Bond Residential Loan Program. And for those of you who are not familiar with our bond program, it is dependent on the sale and allocation of tax-exempt mortgage revenue bonds. So every state is allocated resources from a private activity bond limit. And so Oregon has their allocation, and we also know that it's a finite amount and we are exceeding what we need. So to continue the Oregon Bond Residential Loan Program, we are going to be utilizing the sale of taxable bonds that we're going to blend with our tax exempt bonds to keep our rates competitive. It's a little, behind the scenes information, but I do just want to convey that our Oregon Bond Residential Loan Program is not going away. We will have 2 continuous programs, and we'll have continuous funding. So that's always seems to be one of the questions we get a lot: is the Oregon Bond Program going away? So the answer here is no. The Oregon Bond Program is available for first-time home buyers and then those who purchase in a target area. So it really is restrictive to first-time home buyers or in a targeted area. And that is an area that has been deemed by the census for areas that need to have, rejuvenation in those communities. One thing that we've been consistent with on the bond program is we do offer a competitive mortgage rate. Over time, we usually keep our rates pretty steady. For some of my lenders that are here today, you've probably seen us change rates a little more often than we have in the past. And that is just due to what's happening in the market and how we, sell our bonds and all of that. But we really truly try to maintain that competitive market rate for our first-time home buyers. Here's just a little bit about Flex Mortgage. Some of the differences to our Flex Mortgage program is we're going to have an unlimited supply of money, meaning we don't have to rely on the sale of bonds to fund the program. We have broader eligibility, meaning it's open to not just first-time home buyers. Mortgages will be on par with the rates on the competitive market, and we'll be providing down payment assistance fund available with each loan. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Scott Shaw, and you'll hear more about Flex Lending.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Scott Shaw, Assistant Director of Homeownership Lending. We're excited to have you guys here today. We're going to be answering questions. I'm just going to reiterate a little bit. We'll answer questions at the conclusion of today's presentation. In the meantime, we welcome questions. Please, if you don't want to ask them verbally, you are welcome to put them in the chat. We will stack them up and get them ready. A bit about me. I have over 25 years of experience in real estate finance, including capital markets, secondary marketing, the development, design, implementation, and administering of mortgage programs and products. The development of and the design of the Flex Lending program, pretty extensive. We conducted an in-depth review of the TBA programs that are offered by 9 state HFAs. We held 17 engagements with stakeholders. And along the way, we partnered with Oregon State Treasury, the Department of Justice, ensuring we had good oversight, good guidance, and all of these contributions were integral to the development of this framework. Next slide, please. All right. So OHCS, we have benefited, even though there are 45 other states that have gone ahead of us, we've benefited from the experiences that they've had, and they've shared a lot. We all get along pretty well. Many states have had HFA programs for more than a decade. Idaho Housing, who is actually going to be our master servicer, has actually had one for 16 years, actually over 16 years. Lenders, and there are a few on this call, very familiar with the programs. They're excited for the launch of Flex Lending, as are we. This slide shows basically some of the offerings of some of the TBA programs that are out there. And what's not on here, because it's in development right now, is NCSHA, which stands for National Council of State Housing Agencies, is even working on a common product that each state could offer so that it's kind of the same across the board. Next slide, please. All right. So we met with many of you guys in 2020, and we know the program's been pretty quiet since then. We want to assure you that your voices didn't go unheard. We all have our wish lists of things and ways that we would love to help even more Oregonians. Once the program is established and we have more funds coming in, we look forward to revisiting some of these ideas that we haven't been able to implement, and because of the amount of time that it would take to implement them. So as the program is established and we go forward, we're excited to look back and see if they are feasible in these early stages as we stand up the program. Let's see here. let's talk about the things that we did implement from our feedback session. So some of the things that you guys brought forward was qualifying income. We know that the bond program requires that all people in the household their income must be used to qualify for the loan. With the flex lending program, it's only the people that are on the loan that are qualified, and hopefully it'll help more people attain the dream of home ownership. A no DPA option. Some people are actually coming to the table with either funds of their own or DPA from other sources. So we're making it an option that borrowers can forego the DPA if they don't need it. And the most exciting part is stacking. You can actually stack multiple funding sources and grants to leverage the greatest impact and benefit people the most. And then the most exciting part about this is the focused demographics, where we will receive more favorable DPA terms. This is something that we'll talk about in a couple more slides. But again, we look forward to having more conversations as we implement the program and plan that future growth together. Next slide, please. So there are 4 key roles in the Flex Lending program. The sponsor, that's us, OHCS. We're kind of the centerpiece of that program. HFAs are afforded basically special flexibilities in order to aid and provide needed housing. But for the lenders that are on here, we can't do it without you. We will have approved lenders that originate and close mortgage loans and deliver them to our master servicer, which I mentioned before was Idaho Housing. The master servicer purchases those loans on our behalf and will service those loans for the life of the loan. After they purchase those loans, they will pool them into TBA mortgage-backed securities and deliver them to our TBA provider. In this case, Oregon's TBA provider is Hilltop Securities. That's who is going to guarantee the interest rates and deliver the mortgage-backed securities, or MBS, to its end buyer. Next slide, please. All right. So the mortgage product, pretty simple. It's a 30-year fixed rate product. It's either government or conventional. The government can be FHA, VA, USDA, or Section 184 loans. Conventional, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. There isn't a minimum borrower contribution or a down payment required. Gifts are allowed. Manufactured homes are allowed as real property. Home buyer education will be required by our homeownership centers. And what I want to highlight here about the homeownership center partners is we were very purposeful in ensuring that the homebuyer education was provided by these homeownership center partners, because it allows those partners to begin to develop a relationship, ensuring that the homeowners are aware of counseling and advocacy that's available to them in case they run into problems. Because those homeownership center partners that are already on here already know this, but the lenders don't, is that they actually can provide foreclosure counseling and assistance if there are problems with the servicer. Next slide, please. Okay, as we've said before, we all know that there are racial disparities in homeownership in Oregon. With this in mind, we developed what we call the focused demographic framework to support communities of color, but for a while, we are remaining compliant with fair housing and lending laws. This framework is the result of our work with Minnesota Housing, our DOJ council, and our research team. We compared OHCS's data points with the data points Minnesota Housing is using, making sure or ensuring that we aren't creating barriers for Oregonians. So, focused demographic framework is such that home buyers will actually have a little bit larger DPA. They'll have a little bit more favorable terms. In order to qualify for the focused demographic, home buyers must meet 2 of the 4 criteria to qualify. It's either a household of 4 or more people, a household member with a disability, a front-end debt ratio of 28% or higher, or the sole head of household with at least 1 eligible dependent still residing in the home. Next slide, please. Now we get into the meat of the matters, down payment assistance. So this is the framework that we developed. So we split this into 3 income tiers: below 80% AMI, 80.01 to, or actually up to 80% AMI, 80.01 to 120% AMI, and above 120% AMI. All of the DPA for borrowers that are below 80% AMI is a forgivable silent second. Our focused demographics products are for borrowers that are below 120% AMI. And again, like I said before, it's providing a higher DPA with more favorable terms, as you can see. Above 80% AMI, the DPA becomes a repayable second mortgage loan, and the payments made on these allow the funds to be recycled back into the program, making additional funds available for the program to serve more low-income Oregonians. And again, this DPA can be layered with other sources. Next slide. The Flex DPA 2023 agency budget requests. We're requesting an additional funding in our, wow. So we're requesting additional funding. And our long-term hope is that the DPA becomes self-sustaining, that the fund is not reliant on general fund asks. And the sooner we get this program up and running, the sooner we'll be able to generate that additional funding to serve more Oregonians. Next slide on that. Thank you. Next steps and timeline. There's been an update since we actually put this together. I think you guys are going to be excited about this. Here it says in July, we're awaiting final clearance from all applicable agencies. Though we do not have the formal piece of paper yet, we have cleared our last agency. That would be Oregon State Treasury. We have approval from them to continue forward. We hope to have that contract with our master servicer executed by late August. TBA provider contract is already in place. It was in place a couple of years ago. And then by November 2022, we plan to issue the lender RFA, or request for applications. That's when lenders can sign up to become approved lenders with OHCS for the Flex Lending Program. And by the end of January 2023, we expect to start purchasing loans. Next slide. Questions. Now we're to the questions portion of things. We'll be answering questions, like I said, either verbally or in the chat. Make sure you raise your hand if you have questions in the chat. And we really appreciate you all being here today.
So Scott, I'll just read out a few questions for you. The first one in the chat is, will you be covering how we become an approved lender partner?
So what I will say is this is just like the framework that we put together for the Flex Lending Program. We actually looked at some of the application packages that other HFAs have provided, and we're in the midst of, probably 2/3 of the way through the development of that lender application.
Great, and maybe we can get through these questions in the chat, and then people can unmute and ask their questions verbally if they want. So the next question in here is, can you, do people qualify for flex loans if they're on manufactured homes that are on their own land, or does this include parks as well?
No, that's a great question. So at this time, it's going to be, they have to be real property, which means they are detitled and they become one with the land. Now, that being said, there are some rumblings that we're starting to hear via FHFA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and via HUD, that there is conversations about what they call chattel, which would be manufactured homes that would be in a park. But at this point, that is either still in the conceptual stage or the pilot stage. If they adopt that, we'll definitely be entertaining that. Thanks for the question. Good one.
And just to dive a bit deeper on that question, would it make a difference if it's a resident-owned park?
Unfortunately, it won't, and that has to do with the way that that title is, because again, that the land actually has to be legally, and the home have to legally be together. So they actually detitle the manufactured home and make them one.
Thanks, Scott. And when lenders are able to apply, will that also apply to the Oregon bond?
That is something that is in discussions right now, and I don't have a specific answer for you yet. But thank you for asking. It is a good question.
I'm just going to open it up. I see there's a few more questions in the chat, but does anybody want to ask your question verbally? Feel free to come off mute.
I have
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, sorry. I have a question. Vinny, me first.
Have at it, girl.
Hey, Vinny.
If we're, hi, Scott. Hey, if we're already approved with Oregon Bond,
Yeah.
Do we have to apply for Flex, or does that automatically roll us into that program?
That's a very good question. If you're already approved for the bond program, it is going to be you're going to have to apply for the flex lending, and the
Okay.
reason is that contract is just so different. The bond program contracts that are in place right now are significantly old enough, and they don't cover the parameters of what the flex would. So,
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Scott,
Vinny, it's been years, buddy. How you doing?
that's all I wanted to say, brother. It has been back, I think, 25 years ago.
I know, isn't
Back
that
in the
crazy?
working days, you were my lock man at the lock desk, and I always
Oh.
call you up. Scotty, beat me up. It's after hours, but still lock me, and you took care of me. I love
Oh,
you,
it's-
man.
It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you, man.
You bet. That's all I
Thanks,
had to
Vinny.
tell you.
So I just want to jump in and talk about since we're talking about lenders, and I see Vince Ventura is going to be our new best buddy here. We are we're working on the contract as we speak. We see a light at the end of the tunnel of getting that up. We of course want to work with as many people as we can to get these loans out there and get these folks homes. And so, but Lisa, you know how old some of our contracts are. We have to clean them up and make sure that they align and get DOJ to give us the thumbs up. So we're just going through all the right processes. We want this to be as smooth as possible and as easy as possible, so that we can get working on this. That's really our goal. So I'd love to say we're just going to pass everybody over, but rules are rules. And so I just want to clarify that. And I saw there was a really good question, Scott, and I think that this is definitely a youth question in the chat from Shannon. And I think it was Shannon about interest rates. And so, she wants to know about interest rates being constant for all borrowers. And I think I know the answer, but I would rather have you answer.
So the answer is it depends. It really does. There are a lot of economics that are changing in the mortgage world with the increase in rates. And we're going to address that as responsibly as possible. I don't want to commit to something that we're not going to be able to do. We're going to make it as consistent as possible. I think one of the things, again, because there's 45 other states that have kind of state HFAs that have gone ahead of us, we can actually really lean in and see what their experience is telling us and make an educated, qualified decision from there.
There's another question in here about target markets. How are those defined? And I can go back to our focus population slide if that's helpful too.
I think the target markets that they were talking about was the target markets associated with bond. And that I would yield to Kim on that one.
Yeah, I would actually like a little clarity from the person that asked the question, just so to be sure we're answering it correctly.
Dwayne, can you help us out a little bit?
Yes, I can. I'm just curious to know if the target markets are defined demographically, or a mix of demographics and geographies and rural versus urban and so forth, just to get a better sense of where funding is likely to be targeted.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you're asking if we're going to target specific funds to certain areas throughout the state versus the Oregon Bond Program has targeted areas that the income limits and purchase price limits are different in targeted areas. So I think what you're asking is, right, if we're going to target certain dollars to certain parts of the state, like the Bend area or Southern Oregon, and we are not targeting any funds to certain geographic areas across the state. The Flex Lending Program is going to be open statewide,
Okay,
as with the Oregon Bond Program. So I'm hoping I'm answering your
Yeah.
question.
I think you are. I was recalling some conversations in earlier sessions about culturally responsive market areas and market segments and organizations that serve them. And I'm just not sure if those kinds of definitions will apply in this case. But I've belabored it enough. Let's move on.
Okay.
Great. Well, let's go back. I know there was a part 2 to Shannon's question. Can you share more about how USDA and this product that includes DPA will work together?
Bear with me for just a second. I was actually looking for Shannon's question so that I can actually reread that, because apparently I'm a little bit slow. Let's see here. There we go. Can you share more about how USDA is? It's gonna, I'll be honest with you, Shannon, because USDA is basically 100% financing. They can choose the no DPA option. It really kind of depends on what their closing cost structure is going to be as to whether or not they're going to need or use the DPA. So it may not work. Kind of like VA. You don't see a whole lot of VA.
Okay.
Not necessarily a whole lot of USDA either on on TBA based programs. That's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that answer. That's helpful.
Not a problem.
Scott, we have a few more questions about manufactured home parks. One is, will there be an age limit on manufactured homes on fee simple land?
So the answer to that is really interesting. So when it comes to conventional, and I'll have to check my work on government loans. So I'm not going to speak to that. On conventional loans, they have limited the CLTV to 95% typically. However, they've come up with an HFA advantage, or a manufactured home advantage. That's what Fannie Mae's calling it. So basically, if it actually has a label and meets the criteria, it is just like a stick-built house. We will follow those criteria. If you'd like us to follow up about the government, I have no problem doing that. But aside from that, when we get to age, the actual maximum age is going to be, I think it's July of 1976. And that's because all of the code requirements weren't meant to meet current code at that time. Does that help? All right, we'll assume that's answered.
Okay, and there's another group of questions. I'm going to skip ahead to Celestina's question that I think might get at what everybody's asking. Could a group of residents in a manufactured home park apply for this lending product to fund the purchase of their park? Real property, while they already own their respective homes individually.
Yep, that's a different animal altogether. So I can't speak to it. I know that we'll be doing, again, real property, which is one home, one lot altogether.
Great, and you're going to like this question. How dependent is this program on additional funding from the legislature? What will you do if you are not successful with your request for additional state funding?
I think that that is actually a great question. I think the additional funding is honestly going to be quite helpful as far as the interest rates that we'll be able to offer. It will help bring those interest rates down, theoretically speaking, especially with the way that the market is now. In the future, I don't know how that's going to affect things. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to give you a non-answer to your question.
And I'm happy to chime in there a little bit more, Scott, on the funding itself. So we currently have, and I believe it's 20 million, and our new ask is 25, Scott. Though correct me if it's 25 and 25.
I'm gonna get Kim in here because I think it's 10 is what we have because they split it.
Oh, yes. you are
Correct, Kim? Yes. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
So we've got 10 million.
We've currently
And,
got 10 million for the program and we're requesting an additional 25 for the program.
Yep.
And so really that's, it is not directly necessary to the operation of the program, but it is helpful
Yeah.
to the program.
That is actually very fair. You're right, because the program does self-sustain. It's just, how are you paying for the DPA?
Yeah.
It is
So-
really, yep.
Yeah,
And
much better DPA offerings, and that's something we'll really be talking to the legislature about and fighting for, because we have conversations in the Joint Task Force on Racial Disparities and in a lot of the forums that OHCS participates in as a part of, about the importance of DPA to both us, our partners, the homeowners that we serve, and that's something that the legislature is really hearing a lot of. We're walking into perhaps not the most financially viable legislative session, but this is really an investment that we're going to be fighting for.
I believe those are all the questions. Does anybody have other questions that they want to ask? Oh, okay, we've got another one. Shannon, do you want to unmute and ask your question aloud? Not to put you on the
Sure,
spot.
thanks, Tim. So just, again, I like to say things back to make sure I'm processing information correctly. So to confirm, and I'm talking about the forthcoming request for applications for down payment assistance grant funds and HOPE dollars. Once those down payment assistance funds are released, Scott, you talked about being able to stack resources. So we can take those grant down payment resources and pair those with either Flex or Oregon Bond residential loan program like we do today to help increase borrower purchasing power. And just, is this understanding correct?
yeah, your understanding is correct. Yeah. So the grants that you guys receive, or that the homeownership centers receive and disperse, and absolutely. And we're
Thank you.
excited about that. That is honestly the whole point, is for you to be able to, like I said, leverage that impact and help people the best that you can.
I want to acknowledge we have a hand up too from John at Neighbor Impact.
Am I on? There we go. So yeah, I mean, I think that this program is just really a great program to roll out. I think it's great for all your mortgage partners. I feel the agencies like Neighbor Impact in Central Oregon are going to have to rewrite their whole down payment program as a result of this, possibly because why would you need us at this point if they can just go piggyback on this new program with Oregon Bond? Why are the brokers in the area going to hit up Neighbor Impact? They're not. They're going to use that, and we're going to have to re-scheme our DPA to some extent as a result. And I feel the partnership with OHCS is widening, or getting further away instead of closer together. But that's, I mean, I agree with this program. It's for the people first. It's not for Neighbor Impact's program. But I'm just wondering if there, I mean, I'm sure all the brokers are really excited about it. I'm wondering about the agencies around the state who have their existing DPA programs that have been filling this gap for years. And now you guys are coming in with that fill. It kind of leaves us out a little. Am I misreading this? Does anyone have any insight that I'm not seeing? But
John, I would hope, this is Scott Shaw. I would hope that all of the lenders that I've spoken to are excited to have this. But the reality is that if you're in Central Oregon, you know what housing prices are and what that gap is.
Right.
People are going to be scraping for every dollar that they can get. And the whole idea was to be able to assist you, yet again, we're assisting a little bit broader spectrum, right? From an AMI range. But those people pay back into it to be able to make the program self-sustaining. But again, keeps that opportunity available. I actually see it as a win-win because you can stack that stuff. And I would really hope that you would partner with the lenders that are signed up with OHCS to provide these loans to the Flex Lending Program, and you guys could double your efforts, in my opinion.
Right. I don't think that I have my arms around this whole thing is the problem. So let me do a little more research before I ask any more questions or voice any opinion.
John,
Well-
this is Emma Shea, Perfecto. So we're happy to schedule some time and chat with you and kind of work through some of your concerns and thoughts on this. Because I will, the intent is not to further how we work with our partners. That is never our intent. I mean, if I haven't stated this strongly enough, you are partners. We need you. You're our boots on the ground. You're the folks that are working with clients and the homeownership centers in particular. I mean, you are the strength that actually makes homeownership successful for many, many people. And so that is not the intent. This is to create more tools in our tool belt to really, you know, one of the things that I talk about a lot is we need to get folks out of our affordable rental housing market, get them moved into home ownership, and create this line to start, you know, focused on, I mean, our focus is home ownership, of course, but, you know, we know that on down the line that there's an issue. I mean, people are paying ridiculous amounts to rent because there are people that are homeownership ready sitting in rentals. And so we want to move those folks along, and we need our partners to do so. So we're happy to create some time. I believe Anna is on this call and she's my assistant, so she can reach out to you and look for some times to kind of just give you what we have. And then there was a question that I wanted to address as well along the lines of, you know, media. As we're building out this program, we will be getting as many things as possible to all of our partners so that they can advertise, and we're also working on other languages so we can meet that need as well. And so again, we're counting on you guys as our partners to help us both in the lending world as well as our homeownership centers. So that's the intent, and we'll have as soon as we have those things available, we'll be having sessions to share what it looks like and how we can help you facilitate the use of those.
Right. And I just want to reiterate that I think this is a wonderful program, and it's excellent work, and it's what we need. However, it shouldn't be about neighbor impact. It should be about the whole state. And so I just want to make that really clear that I think this is a good thing. I'm just wondering how we're going to adapt in terms of the relationships with my broker and what we do. And why would they need me now when they can just go full bore with the bond and then the new program? Then we're not in need anymore. And that it's that simple, but that's okay because your program's better than ours. So be it, good, you know, but now I gotta get creative now as a result.
So John, this is Kim Freeman. I just want to jump in really quick. So with our last down payment assistance grant that was funded through our HOPE program, which is our homeowner assistance program, and those funds come from the document recording fee. We tracked, as you know, because Neighbor Impact was one of our grantees, all the funding sources that someone used for down payment. And we know that a lot of them had 1 or 2 sources of down payment and they needed 3 or 4. So I think from all of our data that we've collected, especially over the last couple of years, we know that there's probably never going to be enough money for down payment assistance. And so I think with the, you know, the new down payment solicitation that will be hitting the streets soon, that's all I can say, but that we have, I think there's going to be plenty of funds. Well, I hope there's plenty of funds, but I don't think you guys will be shut out. I think this is an increased partnership. And I know here at the agency, we are talking to other partners like the Oregon Bankers Association, and how does DPA work, and how do we make sure everyone understands how down payment assistance resources work in conjunction with other down payment resources or other lending programs. So, we have that on our wish list too, I think, for just figuring out more ways to share resources with our partners and, potential home buyers.
Right.
But keep asking the questions, right? That's
Right.
We want to hear them.
We have another hand raised. Julian, do you want to come off mute?
Sure. Hi, my name is Julian Rose. I work with the Oregon Office of Housing and Urban Development, better known as HUD. I will say that as the front-facing person for the HUD office, I'm the customer service rep, I'm a management analyst. When I talk to people that call me, they're like, oh, I need to find affordable housing. I point them toward you guys as a way to purchase a home, because I keep trying to explain to people, if you wait in line for a voucher, if you wait in line for a spot in affordable housing with us, you're gonna, your grandchildren might get there, but a lot of people are just never gonna get there. And purchasing a home may be the fastest thing they can do to help themselves. So I support this. I hope that we can, all learn to play nice, and neighbor impact isn't affected by this, and other areas, other people that I send these folks to continue to get assistance from everyone. But this is really important to the people that call me, because they say, well, I can't afford this. It's like you're paying more in rent than you would for a home, as long as you have down payment assistance. So, I just kind of want to stick in and do my 2 cents and say that thank you for doing this. When it actually rolls out, if somebody could please let me know, that'd be great. But understand that, to me, the home ownership piece needs to be more in the forefront of things for people in the state of Oregon, especially for people that I deal with on a daily basis. And I'll take any answers offline.
So exciting. I love it. So Julian, just so you know, one of the things that's on our wish list is to try to figure out how to incorporate people that are already on or in what we call affordable rental housing, and help them transition into home ownership. Do we know exactly how that looks right now? No. But the reality is that that's the kind of things, and especially like we were talking about earlier with John, is that we are so much better when we work together than we are when we work independently. And learning to leverage that is exactly what we're aiming to do. I appreciate the comments. Thanks. Lisa, is it you next?
I don't know if I'm next, but my question, I don't know if I missed it in the slide. The rates, the credit scores, because I know working with the housing centers over the years, the homeownership centers they go by now, sorry, that's how long I worked with them. I know that they have, some credit score requirements and they also have income requirements. On your program, are you going to have the same requirements, or are they higher, or did I miss that section?
We
Because
didn't say
then you're not
I'm glad you asked. No, that's good.
Then you're
and-
not competing with them. If it's a completely different format, you're not competing with them.
No, and quite honestly, it depends on, again, how the financial markets change between now and when we roll out. But the goal is that whatever the minimums of the GSEs are is how we'll roll.
Okay.
Which is typically 620 for those of you that are that are not familiar with that. So,
Okay. And so that is definitely not really a competitive edge then, because for the homeownership centers, because I know working with Oregon Bond, we could do the manual underwrite for a lower credit score with the housing development or the housing programs with their DPA and stuff. So, and just reassuring the homeownership centers that we are still planning on, utilizing you as a lender. I know that we just met with Dev Northwest on Friday here.
Nice.
So we are still working on doing classes with you guys. We are not planning to eliminate you if we are eligible for this program as well. Only
Just
because
another tool in the toolbox.
right,
really. Yep.
exactly. Only because we do have first-time home buyers that don't have great credit, and we
Yep.
are still able to kind of make them fit into another area. So I want to reassure you that we are still planning on using the homeownership centers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have a place in lending. So just
Nice.
throwing that out there.
Well, thank you. I saw a question in here. Hang tight just one second. Did it come from Melissa Frazier? You wanted to know when we're officially going to roll out?
Yes, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
So the answer is 2 years ago. So, but honestly, yeah, January 2023 is where we believe is a responsible spot to put this in.
Okay, so you guys have been working on it for the past 2 years, and is it like applicable now, or is it January of 23 it will be?
Applicable. We'll be buying closed loans. Our goal is by the end of January 2023.
Okay, so well, I was curious if people could start utilizing the program currently.
Not until the end of January.
Okay, thank you.
No, good question. Sorry that it was not as clear as it could have been.
And just to clarify even further, so I mean, we still have a few steps along the way. You know, this is a new program for Oregon, and we've had to look at what Oregon laws require, and so that's part of what takes so long. We appreciate the patience and the support that we've gotten along the way, and so we expect that we still have to get our lender RFA out, which, you know, some of the folks on here have mentioned, and so that we can get our lenders enrolled, and then as we'll be working on media and other things along the way, our documentation, all of that has to come in and get all of that stuff rolled out. So we're on a tight timeline. It's just to be real transparent here, we're all hands on deck. If you have a pulse in your breathing and you're in homeownership, you're working on flex lending one way or another. And so we're trying to move this as soon as possible. We hope to under promise and over deliver. That's our goal and our motto right now on this, because the sooner we get out there, the sooner we get folks enrolled and moving on this. So that is what we're doing today.
Are there any other questions?
Scott.
Hey, Scotty, I'll just throw in real quick. If John's still hanging around, that we were talking about stackable programs. I had used the program, and I know that Lisa had mentioned too that Newbev has been in the office, which, as we know, was Nedco prior to that. But when they were Nedco, I actually used that program, and I stacked 2 other grant programs behind that for this client to be able to make the thing happen. She could not get a gift for the life of her. She didn't have the funds. So we got the grant of the $9,000 that they gave her. She brought in her $3,000 that she had to match for the $9,000. Pulled that 12. We got another grant. By the time we got done, we had $22,500, put the deal together. Without those 3 people working together, those folks wouldn't have a home today. So as a lender, just as like Lisa was saying earlier, every time we get somebody that's coming in the office, it's really tough in our lending laws today. It's just our guidelines have tightened down in some cases. People, just with the increase in rates, the increase in the home prices and stuff has not caught up with the increase in cost of living, what we're making nowadays, the average homeowner. So almost every person that walks through that door needs funds. Right now, tonight, I'll be sitting at this countertop at my house at this. Their close friends are coming in here at 5 o'clock, and they're having to get an additional $20,000 gift from their family to put this thing together, just because of the price in the house that went up and the interest rates. But thank the Lord they have that assets to do that, or that avenue to go get that. There are so many people in this industry today trying to get into homes that don't have that. So having one company to work with is one thing, but when you can actually incorporate all that together, that's a team. That's how basketballs and football people and soccer team, that's how they win. It's not one person, it's a team. And that's kind of where I've been. I've done this for 25 years. I don't get caught up on rates. I get caught up on products and service. That's how I sell my clients. That's how I've been staying in business for 25 years now.
Vinny,
So,
you're
thank you.
stealing my thunder. I was going to talk about the whole goal, the whole idea is to develop relationships so that we can
Sorry.
actually get things done together. And there you go, doing it on your own.
Well, you went to school with me 25 years ago when we started this business. You know that. So we think alike. I'll stay out. I'm done talking. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
But it is about the relationships. We appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so in the interest of time, we have only a few minutes left. Just want to make sure that nobody is left with a question that they want to ask. Okay, going once, twice. All right, so I want to thank everybody for showing up and for supporting this, and I appreciate all of your questions. As always, we are always here to answer more questions. Please feel free to reach out to Scott or Kim or myself, and we can, dig in deeper if there are questions that you have. We will be talking about this for some time, and so please reach out and let us know. And thank you for being here. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a nice, wonderful, hot afternoon.
Thanks,
you.
guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you, Scotty. Good to see you, man.
See you, Vinny.